My name is Davita Galloway. It's a lot that goes into being an artist, right? One, we doubt ourselves initially. Can we really make a living off of doing this? Are people going to see the value in what we do? Will they even get it? This will be a way to not only say that you support art, but you're going to put your money where your mouth is. Like, you're going to step up, like it's good to talk, and because we talk a lot about a lot of things, but to take action is what we really need. And so this is the city taking action.
Hello, my name is John W. Love Jr., and I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this series of podcasts designed to inform and educate Mecklenburg County voters on the proposed quarter-cent sales tax to stabilize and transform the arts and cultural community and ensure cultural equity. You will have a chance to vote on this initiative November the 5th. And listening to this podcast is one of the best ways you can make sure you're prepared when you vote. First, if you are unfamiliar with the proposed sales tax, I recommend you stop listening to this podcast now and tune into the first episode in the series. It will give you a complete overview of the tax and more context to what we're going to be talking about today. In this episode, we sit in and hear how free community jazz classes from A Sign of the Times helps make music education accessible to everyone. We're also going to speak with local artists Alvin C. Jacobs, Amy Hart, and Quentin Talley about the value of artists in a city's culture. Finally, we'll speak with Rosalia Torres-Wiener, Nico Amortigui, Nick Napolitano, and Paula Martinac about the value of arts in finding identity. But before we do that, let's go back to Dup and Swat Gallery owner and Crown Keepers Executive Director, Davita Galloway.
How do I define it? I can tell you properties of it. It's a gift. It's like that light bulb moment. It keeps you up at night. For me, it's color. It's bright colors for me. It's yellow and pink and purple. And orange. Creativity is freedom. Creativity is joy and happiness. And putting a thought or a dream and making it a reality, that's creativity. Creativity is a way to impact and change the world.
My name is Nick Napolitano. I am an artist, muralist, and I also play in the tech space. So the role creative individuals play in this community, I think I can use Charlotte Shout as a really good example. So we just had this festival for the first time in the heart of our city. And we designed a piece that was completely interactive. It had a daytime phase and a nighttime phase where people could come see this mural during the day and experience that as its independent message. And then at night, they could directly co-create and contribute to the image's movements, the narrative that was happening within that piece through a interface. And what was beautiful about that is they felt like they were involved, and that could be used as a way to build relationships sight on scene within those little microcosms that were coming up and engaging with each other. The role is to try and foster more relationship building through these creative interventions, right? The more that we can have people stand in front of something and share an experience with each other and therefore dialogue with each other about that experience, that's expanding what they think is possible, and it's expanding their belief systems.
When it comes to having a thriving cultural community, artists aren't just painting murals, creating sculptures, and singing songs. What they're really doing is telling stories. Stories of ourselves and where we live.
My name is Amy Hart. I'm an artist working with recycled materials, pretty much found metal objects that I weld together and paint. Any culture that you go back in history and look at, Romans, Egyptians, Greek cultures, Persians, a lot of them are defined by the art that they've left behind. And let's just look at our own communities and say what would be we would remembered as a city.
Well, my name is Alvin C. Jacobs Jr., or Alvin Collins Jacobs Jr., and I'm an image activist. Art allows you to have conversations without talking quite so much. Many of us can communicate well, but sometimes a photo or a painting or a song can give you all the tools you need without saying a word, and it brings a lot of people together.
Creating connections, building bridges, and finding identity were some of the benefits our artists found not only for the community, but for themselves as well.
My name is Paula Martinack. I'm a novelist and a creative writing instructor. I teach at UNC Charlotte and also at Charlotte Center for the Literary Arts. We often think of what's called the pre-Stonewall generation as being sort of sad and closeted and these poor people that weren't able to come out and have gay pride and all kinds of things like that. But what we don't understand is that people formed communities, that men and women found each other, that they had friendships and relationships. The relationship that I write about in my book, The Ada Decades, is one that persists over 50 years. And that's the kind of thing that was so moving to me in seeing that exhibit, that even in someplace like Charlotte, which is not San Francisco, which is not New York City, that you could have that kind of strong community, that you could have social networks. I think that was a really important thing for me to see, and it's important. It made an important contribution to this community, and I think probably helped a lot of people to see that there is this continuity over time where people have been able to support each other and survive.
My name is Nico Amortegui. I am a Colombian artist based in Charlotte. Every artist has his own way of creating, how they create, or what they create about. I think it's just showing a different point of view, really. Letting people see how we see the world, or how each person sees the world differently. Or in my case, it's telling somebody else's story, which is what I try to do. I try to tell stories about other people, their struggles and how they view life, and how most of the time when they have less, how they seem to be happier.
So I am Quentin Talley, poet, actor, producer, director, but also artistic director and founder of On Cue Productions. The biggest role that artists play in this community is bringing the soul of Charlotte. Charlotte is known as a very corporate town, but without artists, people will literally have nothing to do. And I feel like without the artists, it would just be a bland city, which it could be if it wasn't for the artists here.
Y no tienen acceso a programas en el verano. Los papás.
Rosalia Torres Wiener.
First of all, these kids are stuck at home and don't have access to programs during the summer. Their parents have to go to work and they stay at home watching TV all day. When I arrive with the truck, we do an art workshop. We all have fun. I'm going to tell you a story about a kid. Arts and Science Council and Discovery Place were there with me, sponsoring my workshop. I remember this little boy came up to me and said, "Miss Rosalia, today is the best day of my life." And I hugged him. He's only 7, and I asked him why. He said, "Because this is like a carnival, like a festival." And I told him that day was also the best day of my life, because I knew that little boy wouldn't be able to come to the Discovery Place due to transportation barriers, or maybe because his parents can't leave their neighborhood because they're scared of ice. If it weren't because we went out with Discovery Place and they brought elements of their exhibit to the apartment complex, we would not have that experience. For kids like him, I always come back.
Y ese día que el Discovery vino y les trajo la exhibición una exhibición que tenían aquí, él no lo iba a poder ver. Hay gente que ya está adulta y que nunca lo ha visto esa exhibición.
The program is called Straight Ahead Jazz Workshop and Concert, and it's for anybody that wants to learn the theory behind playing jazz.
That's the voice of Tyrone Jefferson. He and his wife, jazz singer Tony Tuppence, run A Sign of the Times, a local arts nonprofit that offers free jazz workshops to the community once a month. Today, we're in Holton Theater on the campus of Central Piedmont Community College. These classes are open to absolutely anyone who wants to attend.
We have too many young people that think if you can play a horn and you can know all your scales, you just get up here and God's gonna give you some kind of something and you're gonna be able to play a solo. And it doesn't work like that. So we start with the blues, and depending on the audience, we will talk about some of the theory, in terms of playing dominant scales and subdominant minors and stuff.
The class draws musicians of all abilities and experience levels. At this particular session, there's about 20 people lined up to play, most with their own instruments. There are several saxophonists, a couple of trumpet players, a trombonist, an electric bass player, and even a 10-year-old drummer named Caden.
And we'll start with the blues. Are you Caden? Come on, man, come on. That's right, come on. Caden, are you left-handed or right-handed?
Caden doesn't live in Charlotte, but his grandfather, Jack Booker, does.
And we live here in Charlotte. We live in the university area, and we've been here since 2004. And we love the arts. And we love what Sign of the Time is doing for the community. Not only are you hearing good jazz, but they're doing community activity stuff to really bring the community together. And they do it at a reasonable price. I mean, you don't have to pay that much for it. So it's amazing that more people don't take advantage of it.
Jack says it's important for him to expose his grandson to all kinds of activities and creativity.
Well, for me, it's exposure. And when you expose kids and other adults to things that they're not used to being engaged in, it opens up a new world. And it brings cultures together. If you're not exposed to different things, you won't learn them. You never know what's going to spark that interest until you get a chance to be involved in it, at least see it.
For Jack, a 1/4-cent sales tax is a small price to pay for funding the arts.
Because again, I think it's a small price to pay for such a valuable return that you would get, in my view. Exposing them not just to the seniors that happen to attend the Mallard Creek Recreation Center, but to young folks like this. Get it into them early, get it into the schools, and just introduce them to them. I'm sorry they took a lot of the arts programs out of the schools because that's something that, again, I think culturally helps to enrich our young people. And so for 1/4 cents to bring something like that back to the communities, I think is very, very helpful.
What people want is an equitable share of whatever the world is, whether it's music and art and history and just resources. So I think with our programs, if we could get people to have those conversations, it could change a lot of things in our community and understand that everybody is not seeing the world out of your vision. And so what you're afraid of, you probably could embrace.
Toni Tuppence has been singing jazz in Charlotte and around the Carolinas for more than 30 years. She says the arts are how the region can define itself and write its own story.
This is an opportunity for all of our stories to be told. It's an opportunity for us to dig deep into our history in Charlotte and really understand who we are as a community, individual pockets and collectively. That's where our richness is going to come from. Charlotte has always wanted to be Charlotte, not Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte, right? It has always wanted to be the QC that's above everything else. And that's all cool. But the only way to truly be that is to know who you are and then to offer that up. So I would tell my friends to please vote for this thing so that we can equal the playing field some, so that we can reach out to all corners of the community to do this kind of work, so that history is shared, stories are told, music is responded to, arts are flourishing, and that science is there to intrigue the minds of everybody. The little kid that's down on the farthest end of Beatty's-Ford Road, and the folks who are out in South Charlotte.
Toni says that if we don't support our own arts community, no one else will.
If we don't support it here at home, there are not enough people that can come to support it without us. So that's the main thing I would say is get out and enjoy something, somewhere, all the time.
I see this designated revenue as being a game changer so that art is presented throughout the city proper. And you don't want to forget about the towns.
One theme that many of the artists we talked to spoke about was how a lack of funding places a ceiling on their opportunities.
And to some, $10 isn't a lot, right? But if you have children and you have transportation issues and you have scheduling issues, that does a lot, to be prohibitive. So there was a project that I just kind of fell in love with and I just was made a part of. And I'm like, man, this is the coolest thing in the world. It was Inside Out. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Wait a minute. My art is outside where people can just see it, just walking down the street. Like, how great is that? If we remove those instances and those platforms, there's going to be some people who are going to lose. There are many seniors, there are many youth in this community who don't have access to art by any other means. If the money dries up, the art dries up, the culture dries up, and it's already dry. If we keep saying that there isn't any culture here, that's speaking to a problem. And if there's less money than we already have, and there's already a problem, what do you think is going to happen when those funds are no longer available? If I wasn't who I was as an artist, I would be starving. And you've heard that term, we've heard that term our entire lives. What if I wasn't Charlotte of the Year? What if I wasn't Leading on Opportunity Champion? What if I wasn't all of these great things? And I was just an artist. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What access to resources would I have?
We as writers, and LGBTQ writers in particular, don't make a lot of money. Artists don't make a lot of money. There's some kind of impression that we're all just doing this as a hobby and don't need to make a living. But people are trying to make a living at making art, and not having public funding would be an enormous loss to all artists, but in particular to more marginalized artists like LGBTQ writers and visual artists.
Oh yeah, funding is always important. Without funding, ticket sales usually don't cover everything in an arts organization the way that you would like it to. So without those generous gifts from folks in the community, individuals and corporations and other foundations, you wouldn't have the art that you have in the city, because it's so necessary in order for you to make your goals for the year. So funding is so important to the work that you do.
But I think that it's getting there, but we still have a lot of work to do on the art side of it. I feel like there's some, but there's just not enough. We need to have more galleries, more art events. Like the event on Shout, not too long ago, that thing was absolutely phenomenal. Just it happens once a year. It's almost like we should have this more often. What it did to the people, it's all the families, and it was just pretty amazing.
And so without funding, a lot of programs, a lot of projects, a lot of initiatives will not take off, will not be given life. A lot of people will be told no. A lot of dreams will be crushed. Trajectory definitely changes for artists, for creative entrepreneurs, if funding isn't there. Vote yes. You literally have the power to change someone's life with your vote. I, for one, know that to be true because I know the power of a yes, particularly in the art realm. So you're speaking from someone who has the hands-on experience. It doesn't require much. It just requires you to make that commitment and know that you're not only saying yes to one artist, but to several artists, and you're even saying yes to yourself and to your community.
With more funding, local artists say they would be able to focus more on creating and less on where the money is coming from.
But it's worth thinking that it's this small amount of money that will also help produce new work by artists. Our work is funded, then young people can see that work and maybe be inspired themselves to try art or to become artists.
Without diversity, there's no alternative perspective. You can't live in a mirror chamber where your own identity is the only thing that's reflecting upon itself over and over again. It's a perpetual loop that doesn't have sustainability at the core of it, right? You need to have someone presenting alternative options to your life, because that's what gives you the fruit, the juju that makes it worthwhile, right? Experiencing other cultures, experiencing each other, and the range of the experiences that have led to those people being people is the fruit that we need to really nourish and harvest and experience.
Support your local artists. artists, go see a show, go to the theater, go to the symphony, go to the opera, go to a local music venue, and just support a local artist. Donate on top of your ticket, put some money in their pocket if you want to, all that good stuff. So, but seriously, support.
Thank you once again for listening to this podcast. If you've gotten this far, then you're clearly invested in helping our community to make this important decision. No matter how you feel about the tax, I encourage you to talk to your friends, neighbors, and county commissioner. Finally, I ask that you take this knowledge with you as you vote on November the 5th. As a voter in Mecklenburg County, this decision is in your hands. Please remember to listen to the other episodes in this series on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe for free, and you'll get the second season of this podcast featuring more in-depth information about the tax to be released closer to voting time. Don't forget to submit a rating and a review, or just share this podcast with someone else you know who cares about the future of our community. Want your voice to be heard on the subject? Here's how you can share your thoughts about the proposed sales tax. Text or call 704-286-6288 to share your thoughts. That's 704-286-6288. If you call, you'll go straight to voicemail and you can leave a 30-second message. Or you can send an email to asc@artsandscience.org. Your responses may be used in a future episode of this podcast. This podcast was produced by the Arts and Science Council and Gojo Studios. Writing, field recording, editing, and mixing done by Andy Go. Additional research and support provided by Krista Terrell, Bernie Petit, Lillian Parker, and Giovanna Torres. Original music by Harvey Cummings. And once again, I'm John W. Love Jr., and it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your ears.